Let's get it. The podcast that you need. That's facts. Push it. Push it.
Awesome. And I have a special guest today on the podcast, Dr. Demartini, human behavior expert, worldwide speaker, teacher, philosopher, entrepreneur, business consultant, and author. It is an absolute pleasure, sir, to have you here on the podcast today. I know we both have Houston, Texas roots, so it's really cool to have you on the show today, sir.
Well, I can say the same. The idea that you're coming right out of Houston, because that's where I was born. So I can relate to that one.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Well, let's jump right into this, Dr. Demartini. I love your content. I love a lot of your philosophies on life. You have such a well-versed way of looking at things. You're not just business. You're not just finance. You're not just health. You have such a broad philosophy and a lot of deep systems that can really affect people and help them in their lives. And I really want to start with this podcast today, which I find super powerful, which is your philosophy on people's values and their hierarchy of values and how that affects their lives. Can you kind of give us a little bit about, your philosophy on that and how you came up with that, that mindset?
All right, good. 50 years ago, I had a dream to teach, travel the world. 49 and a half years ago, I had a dream to master my life. I saw David Carradine on Kung Fu, and he mentioned his Shaolin master, and I thought, wow, that's cool. I want to be a master. So I set out on what exactly is that. And I divided life into 7 areas. Our inspirational quest, what inspires us, our mind development quest, our business development quest, our wealth development quest, our family love and intimacy quest, our social leadership and influence quest, our physical vitality, wellness, and beauty quest. I wanted to empower all of them. And so at age 18, I divided that up and I just started devouring every piece of literature I could get my hands on. Mm-hmm. Every different field, every different angle, and whatever I could do that would give me some insight that can help that area. There was both narcissistic and altruistic motives. I wanted to master my own life, but I knew that if I helped other people do the same, we both win.
Right.
So it was a little of both. Then when I got to my 20s, and I noticed that many people were not, as you said, kind of walking their talk. They were saying things, but they weren't doing it.
Right.
And I was curious, why is it that some people say they want to do something, they just knock it out of the ballpark? And other people say they want to do something and they don't, just procrastinate, hesitate, and frustrate, and they don't ever, it's just talk. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, what is it that makes that distinction in people's lives? And that led me down to what exactly that drives people. And it came down to human values. Now, most people, when they think of values, they think of morals and ethics. That's a derivative from values, but values are much deeper than that. That's just a tiny portion of values. So then I found out, when I was studying values, I found out that I was reading all the different things on how to determine values. This is about 45 years ago. And most of the literature, my BS meter was going off. Something's just not, it's almost like people are just going, I think I'm going to make this my value now, and this is what I want it to be, and this is what I think it should be. And what it was is they were comparing themselves to other people who they put on a pedestal and admired, and then thought, oh, I'm going to do that. And then they just arbitrarily picked this value system they said they were going to go and pursue, that they said, well, peace and harmony and whatever it may be. But then their life didn't demonstrate it.
Right.
It was all talk, no action. And I want to know, why is it that people are saying things and not doing it? What makes them do it? And that led me to a lot of different studies. McGregor's theory about theory X and Y, why people are, unengaged when they're doing their work, and other people are engaged and just take off with it spontaneously. They are driven from within versus they need motivation all the time.
Right.
And I started to realize that at age 23, there's a distinction. And I'm going to put a different spin on the terminology than you read in most literature, because I frankly don't find much of the literature in the area really solid. It's a bunch of moral hypocrisies and social idealisms in many cases in the field.
Right.
I'm interested in what your life demonstrates. What your life demonstrates tells me what you value. And so I took all these different mechanisms of how they determine people's values, and I just found that it was just BS. It was just arbitrary selections. So I said, well, how do we really determine somebody's values? How do we really narrow that down to what their life is demonstrating? So there's a congruency. And then I realized that every human being has a set of priorities, has a set of values, things that are most least important in their life. And it is fingerprint specific. It is unique to them. And it determines how they perceive, decide, and act in life. And so therefore it dictates their destiny. So tell me what your values are, I'll tell you where you're headed. Right. Once we really narrow down what they actually are, not with the ones you just fantasize and make up in your head.
Right.
You know, I could make up that I'm an international sex symbol. If I haven't had sex in 15 years, it's not real.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If I don't have a mansion with Hugh Hefner's name on it, I'm probably just a joke.
Yeah.
But the point is, I found that the 99% of the population don't know what they really value. They think they do. And I'm interested in what their life demonstrates. So I created a value determination process to help discern that more objectively.
Right.
You can't get perfectly objective, but you can get better, get closer to it. For instance, if you take a baby who's not been programmed by anything, really, it's a young little baby, you throw something in its little baby crib. If it likes it, it'll stick it in its mouth and it'll hold on to it and it'll keep it right next to it and it'll sleep with it. If it doesn't like it, it'll scream and holler and kick it out and throw it out throughout the crib. So there's a thing called proxemics. And proxemics measure intimate space about 1.5 feet, personal space, which is about 4, social space, which is 10 to 12 feet, and then public space, which is beyond that. And the more distal it is, the more distant it is, the more something is low in value. And the more proximal it is, the more it's valuable.
Right.
You give a woman a diamond ring, she's not letting it out of her hand.
No.
You give her, something that she can't use, she'll just toss it or leave it somewhere.
Right.
So if you look really carefully when somebody gives you a gift, if it's really important to you, you keep it.
Yes.
If not, you find a place to get rid of it or think, oh, somebody else I know will use that.
Right.
So the first value determinant is space. Space is one of the most significant value determinants I found. That look at what people fill their space with. Now, in my case, in my 20s, I was buying 40 to 70 books a week on average. And my apartment was nothing but books. And I was going to school and I lived in libraries or had books and I was reading and I was studying. And so there's kind of an obvious thing that said, well, he likes to learn.
Right.
Okay, so I look at my space, that tells you something. The second value determinant is time. You find time, make time, spend time on things that are valuable to you. And you procrastinate, hesitate, frustrate, and delay things. It's not. I mean, people have asked you, hey, you want to go and join me on this? You go, no. Exactly. You don't just say, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You say, no, I'm busy. Yeah. I got things that I've already planned.
Yeah.
But if somebody contacted you and said, hey, I want you to do a podcast to 10 million people, will you join me on the podcast?
100%.
I want to do your podcast. I don't care if it's 3 a.m, you'll be up and do it.
I'll be there. 100%. Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay. So, can I do a little funny joke?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. Yeah.
I had a girlfriend, lovely girl. I still chat with her. I'm not dating her now, but we're really close friends still to this day. And when we were living together for a while, I would sometimes be working away and typing, and she would sometimes be reading. And then she's ready to go to bed, and she comes up and gives me a hug and does her washes her face, the stuff that a woman does,
Yeah.
and gets ready to cuddle up in bed. I said, I'll be there just a few minutes, honey. 5 minutes later, I'm finished with my writing and I'm joining her. And I'll say to her, honey, and she goes, yeah, want to make love? And she'll go, no, I'm tired. It's been a long day. And everything like that. Okay, honey. I love you, honey. Sweet dreamies. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then right when she's about to fade, you say, honey, yes. If you're too tired, I can cancel what I've scheduled. And I said, what's that, honey? Well, I had a special surprise for you tonight. What's that? Well, in 2 hours, we were going to be picked up by a limo and taken out to the private jet. We're going to go and fly to Venice. And I wanted to take you shopping and take you to the spa and go to have romantic dinners in Venice. But if you're tired, I'll just cancel that. We'll find another time.
She's up.
Boom. Shopping, spa. She was up in seconds.
Yeah.
Vital.
Yeah.
So something that's vital for you, that's really high in your values, you make time for, you find time for, you find energy for it.
Yes, sir.
And something that's not, you don't. So if somebody said, look, I want you to come to a cooking class 11 o'clock tonight, you go, no,
I'm not going to be there. Yeah.
No, but not that 10 million podcast. No, you'll be there.
110%.
So what you fill your space with, what you spend most of your time doing, and what energizes you most. When it's high in your value, your energy goes up. When it's low in your values, it's draining.
Absolutely.
The reticular activating system either wakes you up or puts you to sleep. And the fourth one is money. Where you spend your money tells me what you value.
Right.
If you have a house, most of your money goes to house. Well, something about that house is important to you. Security or family or whatever it is. There's something there or you wouldn't have a house.
Right.
I had 11 homes at one time when my wife was alive. And once she passed away, I've gotten rid of all those homes. I don't need a house.
Right.
I've got my ship. I go around the world on my ship. So those are the first four. There's 13 value determinants that I've narrowed down, that if you really skillfully ask the question, hold people accountable and don't let them BS you, you get an idea after those 13 of what is really valuable to them. And I can guarantee you, after doing this, I've only had one congruent individual in 45 years.
Unbelievable.
Most people are incongruent, and what they say they want is not what they want. I'll give an example. I was speaking in South Africa at a success summit, and I was the opening speaker. There's 5,000 people there. And it was about business achievement and, accumulating or building wealth. That was the primary focus for the weekend. They had Richard Branson speaking there. He was ending it. I was beginning it. And so I said, how many of you want to be financially independent? Every hand went up in the place. People put two hands. Some people put their foot in the air. And it was just like a roaring, fantasy land.
Right.
I said, great. How many of you are financially independent where your passive income is exceeding your active income and you're working because you love to, not because you have to? All the hands went down, all but 7.
Wow.
7 out of 5,000. Now, the real truth is about 1% or less actually make financial independence. But everybody in that room had their hand up.
Unbelievable.
So I asked him, I said, all right, so why is it that you had your hand up and yet you're not doing it? You're saying something, but you're not doing it. I said, I'd like to tell you why. I want you to get a piece of paper out and I want you to write as fast as you can when I tell you to go. I'm going to hand you 10 million US dollars. Now they were down in Rand down there in South Africa at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, I want you to write down. I'm going to give you $10 million. I want you to write down in 60 seconds. If you receive $10 million, what would you do with it? Free and clear. It's yours. What would you do with it? You got 60 seconds to write the 10 things you would do with that money. On your mark, get set, go. And they quickly write it down. Then you can just see them going, oh my God, am I $10 million? I'm just going to be so excited and everything else. Right? Those people.
Right.
If you have 100 million, you don't think much about it. But if you have no money, you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of 60 seconds, I said, stop. I said, turn it to the person on your left. And all the people grabbed it. I said, now calculate of the $10 million, how much is left that's available to be invested in assets that go up in value. Because I gave them $10 million. It's all asset.
Right.
Free and clear.
Yeah.
Between 20 and 80% of the $10 million, that's 200,000 to 800,000, was spent in 60 seconds on depreciating consumables. A car, a house, a trip, nice clothes, giving it to their brothers and sisters, buying them a house, all lifestyle. And out of the room, there's only a handful of people that actually put it into assets that accumulated and went up in value, appreciated in value. And I said, now, everybody stand up who put all their money into assets that appreciate, all of it. And there are 14 people in the room. The rest of them all spent it on consumables that depreciated in value. I said, the reason why you first of all, you believe that you want to be financially independent. But I can tell you right now, 14 of you prove it.
Right.
The rest of you are lying to yourself.
Wow.
What you want and what you imagine is the lifestyles of the rich and famous. You want to spend a bunch of money on a lifestyle, and the second you get it, you spend it.
Right.
You will not get financially independent doing that.
Right.
So as long as you have a higher value on consumables that depreciate than assets that appreciate, you're not going to be financially independent. That's why less than 1%. Okay, make it. So 1% of 5,000 would be 50 people, and there's only 14, so it was less than 1% in that room. And these were all entrepreneurs. You would expect a higher percentage, but no.
Absolutely.
So people lie about what they think is important to them. And that's why I put this together, to try to narrow it down so people could actually start out being honest with themselves. Because if you can't, you already have defeated yourself. You're setting up goals that aren't congruent with who you are. And then you wonder why you're procrastinating, hesitating, and frustrating pursuing them. And then you're beating yourself up thinking, I've got limited beliefs, I've got this, I've got that, I keep sabotaging. All that other self-help crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, none of those are true. You just don't know yourself. Let's get clear about what's really important to you, and then you will see why your life matches that. Your life demonstrates and matches what you really value. That's the first principle that people, and if they don't set goals that are aligned and congruent with what they value most, they're not going to excel in life. The potential's there, but they're not going to activate their potential, because you automatically self-defeat, self-depreciate, lose energy when you're doing something that's not really the most important thing. Because every time you do something that's high in your values, your self-worth goes up. Anytime you do something low in your values, your self-worth goes down. And you self-depreciate. And the purpose of self-depreciate is not a flaw. It's not a weakness. It's not an error in your life. It's not because of your grandparents and your parents and because the moon was backwards when you were born. None of that crap. It's because you are designed to self-depreciate when you're not authentic. To try to get you back to authenticity. It's a feedback, homeostatic feedback in your psychology to try to get you back to authenticity.
This is Dr. DeMartini. As you're going through all this, I have all these aha moments, internally, and it's like I'm looking at the grand scheme of things, and it sounds like as a society on a social level, we get pitched what we're supposed to want to do, what we're supposed to like, what we're supposed to aspire for, and we have these celebrities, queens, kings, or princes, and the whole 9 yards, right? That kind of are the archetype of living out these ideals. And then, the common folk, right? Which is most of us. The common folk are like, man, that sounds good. They seem happy. I should do this. I should do that. But like you said, 99% of the things that people say that they want to do, they actually don't do it, or they really don't have much interest in even executing on it. Do you believe that is most of the issue just they're not in touch with those values that they could obviously have high success, or they
They're
just
perfectly,
or I'm sorry, go ahead.
they're perfectly capable of doing something extraordinary.
Okay.
There's no such thing as an individual that doesn't have the potential to do something extraordinary. But let's just go back in time, thousands of years. And let's imagine that we're nomadic and we're hunters, gatherers, from nomads and gatherers to eventually hunting and this kind of thing. And then we finally decide we're going to start planting seeds and have a stationary lifestyle. And when that begins, instead of being a generalist, you start becoming a specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I can make a furniture. You can build a house. You can grow tomatoes. You can,
Right.
Put shoes on a horse or something. And the second we started to differentiate our specialties, we became dependent on others. So when we lived by ourselves nomadically, we had kinship and we had a few people, that we relied on, but we were pretty generalist. But as we became more specialists, we could do our specialty, but we depended on everybody else to do the rest.
Right.
And so as a result of it, we built in an impulse to want to fit in and an instinct to not, to be rejected. And so then people when they're uncertain, they immediately go to the herd and turn to the herd for decisions. It's called brain offloading. And then they're frightened of not fitting in, and they're frightened of being exiled, and they're frightened of being, rejected because they don't do well out on their own.
Right.
In a modern society. So that's built in, and we've got subconsciously stored impulses and instincts to fit in. When in reality, if we don't stand out, we can't make a difference.
Right.
We say we want to make a difference, but you can't make a difference fitting in. You only make a difference in contribution, standing out. Now, Ernest Becker, in his Pulitzer Prize-winning book, The Denial of Death, talked about this very issue, about what leads to conformity and why we fit in. And when that occurs, whoever we look up to and admire in society, whoever has the most power in society in our minds, we tend to inject their values into our life and try to be imitating that. We're like a chameleon.
Mm.
Ralph Waldo Emerson said, envy is ignorance and imitation is suicide. You just lost your soul. I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul, is the old saying.
Right.
So most people don't have the courage to be themselves. They can jump on a bungee jump. They can, walk on coals and go rah-rah and stuff like that. But the courage to be yourself is way more scary than doing a bungee jump or a walk on coals or rope climbing or something, which have been nice little metaphors.
Absolutely.
So people, anytime you meet somebody in a mall, for instance, that you think is smarter than you think is more successful than you think is more, more savvy financially than you, has more wealth than you, has a more stable, better looking spouse, more socially connected on the social media, more physically fit and attractive, and more spiritually aware, whatever that means.
Yeah.
The moment you minimize yourself to them and are too humble to admit what you see in them inside yourself, you can guarantee you that you will put them above you and put you below them. And the moment you do, you will inject values. Values automatically go through society from those who have the most power to those that have the least power. They automatically go downhill.
Mm.
So Warren Buffett has an influence on the financial world. The Pope has an influence on the Catholics.
Yes.
Right? And so anytime you are too humble to admit what you see in others inside you, you're going to inject values into your life. Freud called these the superego, the internal moralizers. And what happens is that now you set up an assumption that those people have a better life than you. They don't. They don't. I've worked with a lot of celebrities, a lot of wealthy people. They don't have a better life.
Wow.
They have a set of pains and pleasures that you wouldn't be able to handle.
Yeah.
You
So
think you would.
yeah.
But
Do
as
you
long
think,
as you inject their values and try to live in their values, you're designed to self-defeat because you're not being authentic. And you cloud the clarity of your own highest value, which is your purpose in life. And your identity revolves around your highest value. Your purpose revolves around your highest value. And your epistemological area of expertise always revolves around your highest value. So
right.
if you don't know what your highest value is, you don't know who you are, you're easily vulnerable to the infatuations with other people and self-minimizing systems. And it's self-defeating because you're trying to live in their values is futile. You can't live in their values.
This is a very enlightening conversation, Dr. DeMartini. And I'm, like I said, so many aha moments internally. Do you feel like people are, is it maybe people are scared of the responsibility? Because once, I know for me on my journey, I'm 38 now, and I started kind of waking up out of a lot of my knuckleheadness, around 28 years old. And when I started going through that process, and you start having more self-awareness of what's important, what's important for me, what are things that are actually true for me, it sort of has this polarizing thing where it's like, now I'm like, shit, I'm a little nervous now. Like I actually have to like do something. Like I can't do the same nonsense that I've been doing. Do you think people are they want to sort of be asleep to that because it's easier? Or is it just maybe they don't understand maybe how to tap into their authentic truth?
Well, Paul Dirac, the Nobel Prize winner, said it nicely. It's not that we don't know so much, it's that we know so much that ain't so.
Mm,
We're bombarded by misinformation.
wow.
You realize that the thing that sells is something that activates the amygdala and stimulates dopamine. And so the moral hypocrisies and the fantasies is the way society, like the opium of the masses, is what controls most people. And when people don't know that there's always a pair of opposites in life and you don't get a one-sided life, as the Buddha says, the desire for that which is unobtainable and the desire to avoid that which is unavoidable is a source of human suffering. So when you finally embrace that there's two sides of life, and you finally embrace that the celebrity guy out there you think's got a better life doesn't, he's got a set of pains you don't know you wouldn't know what to handle.
Right.
They don't have a better life. I guarantee you they have they have challenges you don't want.
Right. Right.
So highly celebrated people can't even walk outside without paparazzis and people making up stories about them, and God knows what happens. I mean, I've worked with a lot of them. There's a lot of craziness that go through. You wouldn't want that.
Right.
So unless you're willing to embrace the challenges that they face, don't expect to play in the same playing field.
Absolutely.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
But the reality is that nothing's missing in you. You're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you. But the truth is you have it, but you haven't acknowledged it. And you're expecting it to be in their form according to their values instead of your form according to your own. And anytime you expect it to be in their form, not your form, you're going to beat yourself up.
Right.
Can I share a story, a real apropos story about it?
Absolutely.
So, I don't know, 17 years ago, I'm guessing, a guy comes up to me, and a doctor, and he says, Dr. DeMartini, are you still doing consulting? And I said, yeah. He said, can I hire you to do some consulting? And I said, sure. And he said, I want you to make me successful. I'm like going, oh, here we go again. And I said, great. Where are you successful? He says, no, Dr. DeMartini, you didn't hear what I said. I'm not successful. I want to be successful. And I said, great. So where are you successful? He said, Dr. DeMartini, you're not listening to me. I'm not successful. I want to be successful. I said, no, you're not listening to me. I'm asking you a question that's very pertinent. Where are you successful? And he goes, I don't know. I'm not. I said, look again. Where are you achieving something you set out to do that's deeply meaningful to you? It's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
When he stopped and reframed the language, he said, okay, I've been married for 10 years. We've been together for 11. I have an amazing relationship with my wife. She is absolutely my most dearest and loved one. She is amazing. And that she fits the dream that I had. I have a successful marriage. I said, fantastic. And I wrote it down. I said, what else is successful? Where else you got success? He said, okay, you got me thinking differently. I got a son who's 10, almost 10, 9.5. And we may win the pennant this year in baseball. I'm the coach. And I think we're on track for winning the pennant. I think we're going to win. And that's a goal that my son and I have together. I said, great, write that down. What else is successful? He said, well, our mother-in-law, my wife's mother, lives with us. And frankly, she is absolutely a gem. She just helps us and does things. And she's just, we all get along. It's like, I've heard so many nightmares about mother-in-laws. This is like a blessing. And she's really amazing. And we really have a successful marriage with a mother-in-law living there. I said, fantastic. That's 3. What's the 4th one? And he said, well, the whole family works in the yard. And we're probably going to get yard of the summer again because we have the most beautiful yard, I think, for sure. So we're going to probably win again. I said, is that something you do? He says, all the family works and they have little parts of the yard and they all work on it and they all make it as beautiful as they can. And it's just something we do. And we work as a family. I said, fantastic. What else? And then he goes and he said, well, on Wednesdays and Sundays, I do lay ministry at my church. And I have had a dream since my 20s to do that. And I'm doing it. I'm teaching, kind of a Sunday school classes and inspiring. It's like a little sermon kind of thing. And I said, fantastic. I said, can you see you have successes in your life? He goes, yes. Now that you point them out, yes. I said, the only reason you think you're not successful is you're comparing yourself to somebody. Mm. Who do you think that is? And he kind of put his head down. He goes, yeah, I think I know it is. I said, who is it? It says there's a doctor. He lives way up at the top of this hill. He's got a 6,000 square foot house. He's got a 3-car garage. He's got a big practice and he's got 3 or 4 cars. And I'm comparing myself to him because I don't quite have that. I said, great. Do you know him very well? Yep, I do. I said, how's his relationship with his wife? And he goes, well, that's interesting you ask. I think they break up about every few months and then they have a big fight and then they get back together again and it's highly volatile and it's insane. I said, so would you consider yourself having success in marriage compared to where his is? He goes, yes, definitely. Would you trade places? Would you be willing to have his marriage to have his areas of success? I don't think so. No, I wouldn't want to give up my wife for that. I said, okay, I'm making a point here. You'll see. And what about his son? Yeah, he's been in trouble and he's doing drugs and he's 12 years old and 13 almost, and he's just getting in trouble and he doesn't want to go to school and he's just, problems. And I said, would you trade places and take that son and at the expense of yours? If you could have that big house and you could have all that money? He goes, no, my son, I'm getting the point here. And what about the mother-in-law? Oh, they moved out of the country to get away from that crazy lady. They don't even let her they don't even let her at the house. And I said, and what about the yard? Do they work in the yard? Oh, no, they got people that take care of all that. I don't think they even notice their yard. And I said, and what about the Sunday school? Does he teach Sunday school? He goes, no, he's not religious at all. He just focuses on his business. I said, let me explain to you something. He's not more successful than you. He is got areas of achievement that are aligned with what he values more. And he has a higher value on business and finance and a very low value on family and spirituality compared to you. On the other hand, you have a very high value on family and spirituality and less value on business and finance. You'll sacrifice your business and finance to be at your church and be with your son and be home with your wife. Right. So your hierarchy of values is creating your success. And if there's anything I can tell you, that you don't have less success, he doesn't have more success. You both have your own form in your own value structure, your own hierarchy of values. He said, well, is there any way you can shift the values where I can have a little bit more business and financial one? I said, I can. But just know that if I raise business and finance up, something goes down underneath
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And so you may now have a little less time for your baseball, a little less time with your wife. You may have a little less time with that. Now, what we can do is we can raise it up and link it to how having a bigger business and having a bigger practice can help you with your family and help you with your wife and help you with your church and help you in your mother-in-law. We can make links and we can adjust them, but just know that anytime you change the hierarchy of your values, you change your destiny.
Mm.
Are you willing to give up to have what you say you want? Are you willing to give up some of the things you're succeeding at that you didn't think you had? And he says, let me contemplate that before I try to change that. And I said, but I can make some links. And my advice is for listening to you is let's make some links. How is building my business going to help my son? How is building my business and doing the action steps and prioritizing and delegating and doing the highest priority things? How's it going to help my wife? How's it going to help us in the yard? How's it going to help us spiritually? If you make those links, you'll incorporate those actions without a lot of resistance, and you won't have to rearrange them as much. So we did, and we increased his income, $30,000. It wasn't a lot, but $30,000 in a year,
Right.
which gave him another $10,000 in taxes, $10,000 in savings, and $10,000 for lifestyle.
Right.
That was better than what he was doing. He was saving less than that. So the hierarchy of your values dictates your destiny, but nobody is more or less successful. I met some really amazing people that you would think these are super high achieving people. But then I find out that their son is in a mental institute or something.
Right.
Or they got a kid that's dependent on them, or they've got a wife that's the sixth wife, or, so it's not necessarily a better life. Right. There are some that are exceptional that have learned to master all areas of their life. They're rare. They've learned how to master and finding out what they do and how they do it and how to live that way is what my specialty is helping people do that. But most people usually have a weak link in their chain, as they say.
That's powerful, Dr. DeMartini. I think that is, I run a real estate company here in Houston, and I have 7 team members and employees. And earlier this week on Monday, I was going over all their individual goals, and as you work with these people, you get to know them intimately, and you kind of understand what is important for people and what's not, to a degree. And what I was seeing is people were setting goals in a sort of a way to compete with other people, and it's like, I want to make 175 grand next year, or I want to do this and I want to do that. And I'm like, do you really? Because the person that makes 175 and last year you made 60, those are 2 different people, and it's a whole different way of thinking and acting and being. And I just feel like that's, people are always kind of chasing that thing outside of themselves. You made a great example in the story is like, well, the guy was looking at success as just money and business and the penthouse or whatever. But like you're saying, really everybody is successful at the end of the day. They just have different things that are a little bit stronger than others. I'm interested in the holistic aspect of life because I feel like all aspects are very important. I know that's a big component on your teachings and your work. And you work on the seven areas of a person's life. What 7 areas are those, Dr. DeMartini?
Well, when I was 18 years old, I set out to master life, right? I want to be a master of my own life and help other people do the same. And I broke life into 7 areas. And I believe that every human being has an inspired mission that calls them into action. And it doesn't have to be religious. I mean, the inspired mission for Rose Kennedy was, I dedicate my life to raising a family of world leaders. The gentleman I just had lunch with yesterday and dinner with last night was a visionary that brought Cleveland Clinic to Abu Dhabi. And he's a real visionary. And he negotiated with all the sheikhs to bring a clinic there of higher standards for royalty to be able to get the same treatment as they do because they're having to go to other countries.
Right.
And this guy's a visionary and very inspired guy, high degree of congruency and achievement. And so everybody's got a different spiritual quest, but whatever inspires you, whatever is highest on your value, whatever you are spontaneously inspired to act upon, that's our spiritual quest. It may or may not have anything to do with religion, although religious institutions want to use guilt to try to get you into that. That's not necessarily what spirituality is. I mean, I know a guy that his spirituality, when we define what he defined as spirituality, he says, there are two things. I'm an adventurer, and anytime I discover I have a fear, I set out to conquer it. So I've climbed Mount Everest 4 times to the peak. I've climbed the 7 peaks of the world twice each. I swam the entire Amazon River. How about that one? I've walked to the North and South Pole. I've lived in the Amazon jungle with a tribe that's never been discovered. He's an adventurer, so he goes out. He said, that is what inspires me. That's my spiritual quest. I know a guy that was a girl that was a pole vaulter. She had many gold medals for it. She spent 8 to 10 hours a day pole vaulting, studying it, watching videos, learning about it, thinking of strategies, reframing it in her mind. I mean, this girl's highest spirituality was pole vaulting. So whatever spontaneously inspires you and calls you into action that you feel destined to fulfill, you feel it's impossible for you not to fulfill, it's your destiny. That's your spiritual quest. Then you have a mental quest to awaken your mental faculties and creative skills to help you fulfill your mission and to contribute what you've learned and pass the torch on to others. There's a part of us that want to pass the torch. We don't want to die. I call it the 7 immortalities. We want to make sure that our ideas last beyond our life. The third one is doing something that is sustainable, that's fair exchange, and contribute to other people in the form of a business. And some people's business is not the many. Some people's business is their husband. That's their customer. As long as they please the customer, they get paid. Okay. But some people, it's an actual business. But some people say, well, I'm not in a business. Yeah, you are. You got a husband and you got kids, and you're creating products out to the world that you want to be viable. And you have a husband, and he's the primary provider of income. And as long as you're helping him meet his needs, you got a customer and you're in business. And she goes, hey, I like that. I'm in business. Thought of it that way. But then you also have a desire to have more money at the end of your life than life at the end of your money. You would like to have some sort of retirement wealth to be able to sustain and not burden your kids, and to be able to have something to pass on philanthropically. And then you also would love to have more love and intimacy and closeness and respect for the individual that you're married to or the people that are closest to you, family. And you want to make some sort of difference. You don't want to go when you die. I never heard of the guy. Never heard of him. You want to make some sort of contribution, even if it's in your community or city or state or nation or world. The farther you go into authenticity, the bigger that becomes. And you want to make sure that your body lives vitally. You want to be as healthy and as vital as you can possibly be. You want to, women and men still want to be attractive in their 70s and 80s.
100%.
I know 78-year-olds that are when all of a sudden another 80-year-old walks by, they perk up, and you can see that they want to be attractive, they still want to be, they still look like they've got it. So there's a desire to physically be fit and vital and well and attractive. And then there's also, all those 7 areas I call them the 7 areas and 7 powers. In any area of your life, you don't empower, people are going to overpower you. If you don't empower yourself intellectually, you'll be told what to think. If you don't empower yourself in business, you'll be told what to do. If you don't empower yourself financially, you'll be told what you're worth with Social Security. If you don't empower yourself in your family, you'll probably be doing stuff around the house you don't want to do instead of hiring specialists to do it. If you don't empower yourself socially, you'll be probably told misinformation and propaganda, like most of it is out there.
Yeah.
And if you don't empower yourself physically, you'll be told what drug to take and what organ to remove.
Right.
And if you don't empower yourself spiritually, you'll probably be living in some antiquated Aristotelian geocentric construct of the universe and call it spirituality.
Right.
Instead of thinking broader and thinking of what am I here to do on this universe, you know? So any area of your life you don't empower, people are going to overpower you, and they're going to overpower you to frustrate you enough to go back to being authentic where you empower yourself. And all the symptoms that we have in our life, our physiological, psychological, sociological, business, are all feedback mechanisms to try to get us back to priority and back to authenticity.
Mm.
So the world is working in our favor, but we don't see it because we hold on to our fantasies about being somebody we're not.
Wow, man, this is powerful. I feel like I love. I feel like empowerment and personal truth. You know, I was talking to my wife about this. We were talking about politics, and it's like you have these different ideologies and different beliefs and all that stuff. And I'm not super political, but and I was like, you know, if people put as much passion and enthusiasm into, you know, their own life politics, like what's important for them, their own personal truth, a lot of these problems in our world, I feel like would naturally, organically start to solve themselves, because a lot of the problems are, like you said, they're just feedback mechanisms, and we keep, you know, kind of rehashing the same stuff over and over. And it's sort of a scary thing when you see it, because it's sort of like smoke and mirrors, and it's a little bit of the, you know, the blind leading the blind, or so to say. But I think
yes, well, the amygdala is noted for bias, prejudice, and, you know, subjectivity that's polarized. So
right,
people that are in the amygdala are going to be right and wrong, black and white, good and bad, the moral
right,
hypocrisies.
right,
A wise individual that has more reflective awareness will immediately, when he looks at somebody and judges them, he'll immediately go, what specific trait, action, or inaction do I perceive them displaying or demonstrating that I admire most or despise most? And they'll
right,
narrow it down and be specific. They won't be broad generalities. They'll be very specific. And then they'll go and self-reflect, and they'll go, all right, me, go to a moment, me, where and when I perceive myself displaying or demonstrating that same behavior.
wow,
And where was it? When was it? Who is it to? And who perceives me that way?
yeah,
And then go to the next moment I did it. Where was it? When was it? Who is it to? And who perceives me that way? And go to the next moment. Where was it? When was it? And they keep going and doing it until they realize that the seer, the seeing, and the seen are the same. What they see is them.
mm.
And that when all of a sudden they realize that this partisan illusion changes, because all they are is disowned parts. See, if we're too proud to admit what we see in others inside us, we have a disowned part. If we're too humble to admit what we see inside them, inside us, we have a disowned part. And it's all the disowned parts that leave us empty and, you might say, unfulfilled, because of those judgments that are stored in the subconscious mind that creates impulses and instincts out of the amygdala that keep us in our drama and keep us in our crazies, you might say.
Yeah.
But the second we have reflective awareness, our blood glucose and oxygen goes into the forebrain, where we have an executive function, where we calm down and mitigate the impulses and instincts of the amygdala, and we now see things objectively.
Right.
A lot of the problems are because we see things subjectively and overreact instead of actually see things objectively and spontaneously act out of love.
Wow. That's huge, Dr. DeMartini. And I want to kind of end this with, you have a powerful seminar. I want to say it's your flagship thing that you do for your millions of people across the world, and it's the Breakthrough Experience. And this is online, correct? It's an online experience, or is this in person as well?
Well, for 33 years or so, 32 years, it was all live.
Okay.
Saint COVID came in and moved
Yeah.
it where I could do it online.
Absolutely.
Do it online. And now I'm doing it live and online.
Okay.
So we've got them in different countries. I've done them in many, 87 or 8 countries now. So I've done a lot of them. 1,166 of those, in fact.
Yeah. I mean, just super, super powerful. And I want to give people an opportunity that are seeing this to be able to connect with you, because I know this is a it's a 2-3 day seminar, and this is an opportunity for people to literally break through all those things that we just discussed, and the values that aren't in alignment with themselves, being able to get in touch with those values, break through, all the junk and the misinformation that we all get bombarded with, and really kind of step into, who they were made to be, which I think at the end of the day, every single person deep down wants that. What is the best way for them to be able to find that opportunity and experience that?
All they have to do is go to drdemartini.com, and on there's a complimentary, free, and private value determination process for me, because I just made it available worldwide. And there are a lot of people who are using, a lot of companies, governments, you name it, and individuals. And it's a simple process. It takes 30 minutes of their time, but just know that you're probably going to lie the first time. Do it again a week from now. Store the first one, because you're not going to want to face the truth of yourself probably the first time. Very few people do. Do it again, store them, because it'll store it on the computer. And it's private. No one will see it except you. But just do it again, and then a month from now, and then do it again 3 months from now. And take a look at what's real. And then go back and really reflect and look at what your life is demonstrating, not what you fantasize, not what you wish it would be, not what you hope it would be, not what it used to be. What is your life demonstrating? It's really eye-opening. And then, yes, the breakthrough experience, I get to teach them how to have reflective awareness and how to not subordinate to people and not superordinate. See, if they sit there and inject the values of others and try to live in other people's values, they have futility. That's like a cat trying to swim like a fish. Right. And if they project their values on others and expect them to live in your values, you're just going to alienate people and to get humbled eventually.
Right.
Learning how to communicate what you value in terms of what other people value is the name of the game. And we emphasize, it's just tons of the things that we cover in those 2 days. It's 24 hours together. Yeah. We spent not even an hour.
Yeah.
It was 24 hours just meet. I asked people at the end of the breakthrough, I said, how many of you learned something this weekend that you could have gone your entire life, and if you hadn't have been here, you would never have learned? Every hand goes up every week.
Unbelievable.
So I'm certain that what you're going to get is in here that you won't find anywhere else. I'm an original thinker. I've been devouring literature for a long time, 50 years now.
Absolutely.
And I confront half the BS that's out there, a lot of the moral hypocrisies and self-help stuff. There's a lot of self-help stuff that's not really leading people wisely. So I try to get through the myths and get down to really objective, what's real. And it's shocking when all of a sudden people have to be accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that is what the work that you're doing is even more. It's obviously it's always important, but I think even nowadays, 2022 going in the next, 2023, there's so much misinformation because of social media where, man, probably 30 years ago, it was not as clouded as it is today, where people are just bombarded with, I should do this, I should be this, I should be like this person or that person or whatnot, or maybe I'm like you said, I'm I have issues, from growing up, or all these crazy things that we conjure up to try to make sense of why we're not in alignment with our lives. But like you said, the answers are within us. We just have to get down to the root of the truth, and
nothing's missing in you.
Right.
The magnificence of who you are is there. And it's peeling away the BS that you've surrounded yourself with.
Right.
It's liberating. I had a lady that was in I believe it was Colorado, and she was beating herself up and feeling not like a woman. And I said, so what are you beating what's the issue? And she says, I can't get pregnant. My gynecologist said I won't be able to have any more babies. And she said, do you have, how many babies do you have? She says, I have 6. I said, how many do you want? She says, I need at least 12.
Woo.
And I said, where did you get the idea that you must have at least 12 and that you're not a woman if you can only have 6? And she says, well, everybody in our community has at least that. And the more kids you have, the higher the pecking order.
Mm.
And I go, okay. So now I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a second and just sit still for a second. Do you really want to have 12 kids? You. not what society wants, everything else. She started bawling and she says, no. I said, your physiology is doing something unconsciously, isn't it? To make sure you don't go after and try to be somebody you're not. She said, I got an advanced degree and I want to be able to do my business. And I feel internal conflict because all of the social peer pressure tells me I need to be a mom and be with my kids and not try to work. But the real truth is I love working.
Right.
And I said, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the authorities that you've been subordinating to. We're going to find out everything that you admire in them, and we're going to find it in you so you don't have to give away your power, and realize that through reflective awareness that nothing's missing in you, and you make decisions in your own heart, not based on what other people expect. Because I'll be willing to bet, and I guarantee I've done some consulting with them, that a lot of those other women are in the same boat. They're thinking, I should be like this. And then some of those people are sitting there privately coming to me and trying to get out of this quagmire they're in.
Right.
So beware. Envy is ignorance. Imitation is suicide. Don't be second at being somebody else. Be first at being you.
That's powerful, Dr. DeMartini. We will end it there. I think that is a great note to end this on. I love spending this time with you today. It was awesome. I love your material, the way you think. You're an independent thinker. I truly really do appreciate what you're doing for the world and how you're helping. I'm hoping that we can be connected soon in the future, and I know we will be. And I really appreciate today. Yes, sir.
You're a Houstonian. I mean, I come into Houston. I still have an office in Williams Tower.
Okay.
Where Williams Tower is.
I'm not very far away. Yeah, not very far away.
I just filmed a movie in Houston recently. They're on San Felipe.
Okay.
And it was before you get to Hillcroft, and somewhere between Chimney Rock and Hillcroft, or Augusta, or whatever, somewhere in that area.
Yeah. Well, that's my neck of the woods. So I
think it was 6301 San Felipe. In fact,
I probably live like 2 minutes away because I'm off San Felipe in Augusta. So I definitely want to stay connected, Dr. DeMartini, and I really appreciate it. I hope you have a blessed 2023. I know you will. And until next time, we'll talk soon.
Thank you very much for your interview. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Bye.